Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I have been asked to present the concept of mind in Vedanta. The approach that science has, the approach that Vedanta has, is quite different. Science looks upon the mind as a manifestation of brain. For science, the reality is physical reality. This body is a self. As long as the body is, the self is. The body is not, the self is not. So this is the ultimate reality, body. Organs such as brain and others, and the mind and the consciousness are the manifestations of this body. Meaning that very often mind and consciousness are equated because there is no way of measuring or objectifying what is called consciousness, and therefore mind itself is usually thought of as consciousness. So in reference to this, I want to present what is the Vedantic perspective for the body, mind, consciousness. Vedanta teaches that what we perceive here, which is perceived by the sense perceptions, is the gross body, including all the organs such as brain and all the organs. This is gross body. Corresponding to the gross body, there is a subtle body. You can say mind is the subtle body within the gross body, which is what imparts sentiency to this gross body. The gross body is sentient, moving, acting, is because of the subtle body which is within this, and the mind is the most important component of this subtle body. And then there is a third principle. So gross body, subtle body, and the third principle called consciousness. So we have the physical personality, a mental personality, and a spiritual personality. Thus, we have many dimensions. However, as far as science is concerned, since science deals with what is objective, it can be objectified, which can be demonstrated, which can be perceived. Science accepts perception and inference as the basic means of knowledge. But Vedanta accepts what we call the scriptures or revelation as also the authentic source of knowledge. So science works on the deductive knowledge, logic, Vedanta works on inductive logic, meaning what the scriptures tell us, and this is what we find the verification. So, I have a physical personality, a mental personality. The mind again is divided into two basic faculties. In Sanskrit called manas and buddhi. The manas, the emotional faculty, buddhi, the thinking and intelligent faculty. And beyond this is the principle of consciousness. It is consciousness that imparts sentiency to the mind, which in turn imparts sentiency to the body. So Vedanta teaches that just as the body is a product of matter, so also the mind is the product of matter. The body is a product of matter in the gross state, and the mind is the product of matter in its subtle state. So mind also is matter. Mind is not consciousness, mind also is matter. And that which enlivens the mind is the principle of consciousness. So this is what Vedanta teaches. Meaning that mind is not the manifestation of brain, brain is a manifestation of mind. We are, as I said, with this gross body, this corresponding subtle body. So we perceive here the organs of perception, the organ of hearing, touch, taste, smell, color. So these are all visible. These are called golaka, the location. There are corresponding subtle organs, like the faculty of hearing. In the subtle body has the manifest through the locus here, which is what we call the ears or the faculty of hearing. Similarly, subtle faculty of sight, subtle faculty of taste, touch, smell. All of these form the subtle body, and then the mind. Meaning that a person can be blind. If these eyes are damaged or not, for some reason, but the subtle corresponding faculty of the sight is still there. The brain, of course, is the locus where the mind manifests. So just as those perception faculties manifest through organs of perception, the mind manifests through brain. As I understand, brain is not the only intelligent energy in our body. Every organ has its own intelligence. The heart has its own intelligence. The liver has its own intelligence. And in fact, the heart has intelligence which is much more powerful than the intelligence of brain. Therefore, yogis said that heart is the center where the mind and the consciousness manifest. It is where the self manifests as I. Therefore in yoga also, heart is presented as the locus for concentration. There are several spiritual centers. Heart is an important center. The point between the two eyebrows also another important center. The crown of the brain is yet another important center. And there can be an evolution in your consciousness that the highest point is in the crown of the head. Thus, the mind is unfortunately, mind cannot come in the purview of science because mind cannot be, all they can objectivize brain. As I say, it is not brain that produces mind, it is mind that manifests in the brain. and it is consciousness that manifests in the mind. Through mind, into subtle body, into gross body. That's how the body is sentient. And then what happens when death happens? How does Vedanta explain death? For science, this body is dead, everything is gone, there is nothing other than body. Vedanta says no. What is called death is the departure of the mind, the subtle body, from this gross body. And what is called birth is entering of this subtle body into another gross body. Meaning that the body dies, but the life principle does not die. Therefore, we talk of the previous birth or the next birth, what they call the reincarnation. The subtle body, called the soul, reincarnates. It does not die with the death of the brain. It does not die with the death of the body. We do not die. We continue to exist. Just as matter does not get destroyed. Matter just changes the form. So also life does not get destroyed. Life merely changes the embodiment. For one embodiment, the life manifests in the other embodiment. So call it soul, call it subtle body with consciousness, is an eternal principle. And we can work with our mind. So Vedanta, including yoga-śāstra, has a very sophisticated study of the mind. Very sophisticated. What mind is, how to understand the mind, how to control the mind, how to evolve the mind. The whole spiritual practice is to evolve the mind from where we are to where we should be. Briefly, the mind is said to be made up of three dispositions or three gunas called sattva, rajas and tamas. When the mind is predominant in sattva, there is calmness, there is tranquility, there is cognition, there is reception, there is learning, there is knowledge, there is happiness. When the mind is predominant in rajas, there is restlessness, activity, aggression, anger, jealousy, etc. come. The mind is predominant in tamas, there is inertia, inactivity, laziness, slothfulness. Each one of us is a combination of all these three, and we feel sometimes very cheerful, happy, sometimes very agitated, sometimes very dull. So what does Vedanta teach? How to slowly transform the mind from the tamas to the rajas, from rajas to sattva, from sattva to consciousness. So the spiritual practice is, Bhagavad Gita teaches the karma yoga. Performing karma or the duty in the spirit of offering, that is meant for transforming the mind from rajas to sattva, from a restless, active, aggressive mind to a tranquil mind, a cognitive mind. And with that, from the teaching of the scriptures, they teach us how also to transcend the mind and recognize the consciousness which is the true nature of ourselves. So this is how Vedanta or spiritual sciences, including yoga, look at the mind. And of course, so that is the reason why we don't not only have a psychiatrist, but we also have a psychologist or a therapist who works with the mind. Psychiatrist works with the brain and whatever else. Psychologist works with the mind. And of course, Vedanta works with the mind in a more sophisticated way. Because what we are is our mind, As the mind, so the man. And therefore, a great focus upon the mind. In the yoga-śāstra, as well as in the Vedanta. And I wish that in some way, it's a very beautiful term that I coined, the brain-mind. So Dr. Mukundan said, the brain-mind. But unfortunately there it means that the mind is subservient to brain. If the brain-mind is, the brain is subservient to mind. In brain-mind, the brain seems to be the important component, the mind is subservient component. If on the other hand, if the mind is the principal component, as Dr. Gangadhar also talked about, the different changes they see in the brain as to how changes take place in the mind. Yoga deals with the mind. So somehow, this mind also should be brought into science. There was a time when they did not even accept psychology as science. Because mind cannot be objectified in a laboratory, etc. But it is now psychology is accepted as a science which deals with the mind. But psychology deals only with disorders of the mind more than anything else, unfortunately. So yes, you need to discuss that, you need to understand the disorders of the mind. Vedanta addresses the normal mind. The disorders of the normal mind. Normal mind as we have lots of disorders. And how to help overcome those disorders. How to tap the potential of our mind. And thus, how to become from man to a God-man. Not a good term these days anyway, God-man, etc. But what I am saying is, how to, as Swami Viditatmananda said, that we are not the body, I am not the body having consciousness, I am consciousness having a body. If this is recognized by science, and in some way they learn how to take into account the principle of consciousness, which is the subtlest principle. Then comes the mind, and then comes the body. So, we only urge Professor Mukundan and Gangadhar and all our friends here, all scholars, that somehow this mind and consciousness, which cannot come in the purview of, because science has its own boundaries. Science will only accept that which can be objectified, which can be perceived and inferred. They won't accept anything else. Consciousness cannot be perceived, it cannot be inferred. Even mind also cannot be perceived, and only brain can be perceived. Therefore, the most they can do is to work with brain, which is fine, which is what they should do. But hopefully, they will also try to integrate the mind as an independent principle. Not that consciousness is created because of activity of brain. Not so. It is mind that creates that activity in the brain and not that the other way around. It is not that the mind does something, it is a consciousness that even further, subtler principle that also acts upon the mind. I don't know how to bring this into the purview of science, but this is what I want to share with you, with all our scholarly friends, that I know nowadays, of course, that the existence of consciousness is accepted by many scientists also, and there are the Vedantic people, scientific Vedantic people who try to, like Deepak Chopra and others also, who try to demonstrate the existence of consciousness because of some experiences and phenomena. But there is not still what we call hard-nosed science. Hard-nosed science is a different thing, but then we would only say that science, all the studies cannot be complete unless taking into account all the other principles also. So hopefully they will also proceed in that direction. And I pray that this conference also explores that. It's a very wonderful conference to study the brain-mind, All learned people are here. I pray and wish the very best for this conference, that the speakers contribute the best, and the listeners also get the very best for them, and thus they all progress towards a satisfaction and success. With that, I conclude.